Thank you, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Jen Engstrom, and I am the State Director for CalPIRG Education Fund, a statewide consumer research and education organization. And we are here today to release a new report, the Auto Lemon Index, which top-selling auto manufacturers are sued the most, the least, over defective cars in California. And I am joined today by Rosemary Shahan, president of the CARS Foundation and co-author of the report, as well as Auto Lemon owners Peter Snyder and Shelby Anderson, who will share their experience filing lawsuits over their lemon vehicles. And then after our comments, we'll open it up to questions using the Q&A feature. So to get us started, I think we can all agree that when you buy a car, you expect it to be safe and functional, especially now as car buyers pay record high prices at car dealerships. And if problems do arise, car manufacturers should be quick to deal with any repairs or replacements if necessary. And if they don't, then state auto lemon laws provide a vitally important avenue for recourse. California's lemon law, which was signed into law 40 years ago this July, requires auto manufacturers to give owners of defective cars refunds or a replacement vehicle when the manufacturers fail to fix major problems that arise during the warranty period. And over the decades since its enactment, the lemon law has provided an incentive for automakers to produce higher quality vehicles. And over time, cars have gotten safer. However, the number of recalled cars on the road and the stories from the lemon owners with us today show that the lemon law is just as important today as it was 40 years ago. Now, we did research, Sandra, you can go to the next slide, into California state electronic court filings, and it provides an unprecedented view into how likely California consumers are to wind up in court after purchasing a car, an SUV, or a light truck from different auto manufacturers. We reviewed 34,397 lemon lawsuits in California state courts from 2018 to 2021. And what we found is that auto manufacturers vary wildly in how often their customers take them to court in California for selling defective cars. And as you can see in our chart here, General Motors was sued the most often relative to their share of the state's new vehicle market, while Toyota was sued the least. Toyota was taken to court under the lemon law only once for every 2,029 cars sold in the state. And on the other hand, General Motors had a lemon lawsuit filed for every 78 cars sold in California. So consumers who purchased GM vehicles were approximately 26 times more likely to file a lemon lawsuit than consumers who purchased Toyotas. You can go to the next slide. Now, there are a number of factors that contribute to how often a manufacturer is sued for lemon violations. Vehicle quality is likely a large factor. Other factors include how promptly and effectively the brand's dealership handles problems that are raised by consumers, and the length of the warranty that the manufacturer offers on its cars. Another contributing factor is how well a particular manufacturer addresses the severe shortage of qualified automotive technicians and software engineers for troubleshooting defects. And the consumers in our analysis reported a troubling array of problems with their vehicles. This included brakes, steering, engine, transmission, and electrical failures. And in addition to the defects that threaten the safety of drivers and people around them, we also know that lemons often represent an unexpected financial and time burden for consumers and small businesses, because it can be challenging to lose your only means of transportation to work or to school for an extended period of time while the lemon is in the repair shop. So today we'll hear some more specifics from lemon owners on this webinar. But before that, I wanted to hand it over to Rosemary Shahan to discuss another key finding of our report, which is that few issues with defective cars actually end up in court.
Thanks, Jen. And I'm Rosemary Shahan, president of Consumers for Auto Reliability and Safety Foundation. And I'm honored to be here with folks from CalPIRG and Frontier Group who worked with us on researching and writing the report, and with two very courageous lemon owners who used California's lemon law and persevered and eventually won. but it shouldn't have been that hard, and it shouldn't have been necessary for them to sue. And the auto manufacturers constantly are attacking California's lemon law, but some manufacturers have been way more aggressive than others. And not coincidentally, they tend to be ones who are engaged in the most lemon litigation. I guess that's to be expected, but it does seem like since the lemon law has been in effect for decades, it's time for them to learn to live with it. And some manufacturers obviously have done a much better job at that than others. It's important to put the lemon litigation into context and to realize that the numbers of lemon lawsuits that have been filed in court in California are really tiny compared to the number of vehicles with known unrepaired safety recall defects. According to Carfax, there are over 6.3 million unrepaired recalled vehicles currently on the roads in California. And these are vehicles where the manufacturer has said, this car has a safety problem that needs to be repaired. And according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, all safety recalls are serious. Typical safety recalls are for things like catching on fire, brakes that fail, hoods that fly up when you're driving in traffic, wheels that fall off, steering wheels that come off in your hands, and a whole host of other issues, including the exploding Takata airbags, where even if you're in a minor crash, if it's enough to get the airbag to inflate, you're at very high risk of being injured or killed. It's been likened to having a small hand grenade go off inside the passenger cabin, and people are being blinded, and in some really tragic cases, they've bled to death because of these defects. And it's also important to note, if we look at the next slide, that the number of lemon lawsuits is really tiny. It's less than 1% compared to the number of new vehicles that are registered in our state. So when you hear from auto manufacturers that there's too much lemon litigation, it should be taken with an enormous grain of salt. And some manufacturers obviously have more to complain about, but then so do their lemon owners. And years after the lemon law has been enacted, some of them are still denying that vehicles are lemons when they've done everything but turn yellow and sprout leaves and squirt juice in your face. So it's time for all the manufacturers to live with California's lemon law and comply with it.
Great, thank you, Rosemary. Okay, so now we're going to hear from some lemon owners themselves. I'm going to hand it next to Peter Snyder to share his story.
Hi, I got a Chevy Bolt in 2018. Was interested in going electric, and ironically, I guess I had an interest in learning about the car. I was supposed to work on electric information systems for the company I work for. I'm a software engineer, and the program for me was to be the Chevy Bolt. So I got one. And a few months later, within the first few months, I had a fair number of problems. I didn't realize how serious they were. Problems with the infotainment, heaters, backup camera coming on and staying on while I was driving, the infotainment system rebooting. But a few months after I got the car, I was pulling up to the front of my house, and this is just driving straight and pulling over a little bit, just to the curb. And as I was coming to a stop, the car just suddenly lunged forward. And the Bolt that I had already been using it in the single pedal driving mode. And so you put your foot onto the accelerator, and then it goes, and as you pull your foot off, it starts doing regenerative braking. So normally I don't have to use the brake pedal at all. So my experience of the car suddenly accelerating could not be explained by a confusion about which pedal it was. My wife and my daughter were in the car with me, and they witnessed this, and it shocked everybody. There was nothing on the display to indicate that there was any kind of problem. So there wasn't anything for me to photograph, no videos, and that was the first serious problem I had with the car, but absolutely a scary one. And that experience never left me. For the rest of the time I had the car, I was scared of driving it. I always imagined that perhaps today's the day that I would be pulling up to a crosswalk with children in it. So this was a horrible experience. When I brought it to the attention of the dealer, all they did was belittle me and said, oh, you know, you mistook the pedal, and it's your fault, and nothing happened. There's nothing wrong with the car. And they couldn't find, after I insisted, they did look at it. But you can guess the rest of the story. Nothing ever happened. And from that time, I had one other serious incident where the car stopped on its own. I was pulling out of the driveway, and after I got the car out into the street, it just stopped. I was driving and it stopped, blocking traffic at night, and I could not get it started again. This continued for 20 minutes, during which time I went into the house and tried to look things up, came back out to the car. I videoed this whole thing. Multiple attempts to start it, and finally, for some reason, it started again. I was able to park it in front of my house. That was quite scary. And then from that time onward, I had many incidents of the previously mentioned problems with the infotainment, backup camera, and heating systems. The heating systems sometimes would not work, or they would stay on, or the radio would stay on full blast. Things like this. And those just never ended. Eventually, I had GM replace the infotainment unit entirely. All the time they're saying they could never reproduce anything, nothing was in the logs. And even after they replaced the infotainment unit, those problems persisted, although not quite as often. So that's the key part of the story, but there's one little addendum. And that is later, after doing some research trying to figure out what happened, I learned that the 12-volt battery, not the one that powers the car, degrades over time. And a lot of these cars sit on their lots before they sell them. And during that time of inactivity, the batteries can lose their ability to hold a charge properly, the 12-volt battery. And I guessed that that had something to do with those previous problems I had, because once I had the 12-volt battery replaced after about 6 months, I think that's a big reason why I didn't have the sudden acceleration again, or that problem of the car just stopping. And I have discovered that on Wikipedia, if you look up sudden unintended acceleration, you will find reference to labs that have reproduced that problem with low voltage on the 12 volts. Not necessarily with Bolt, but with cars in general. So that is my story.
All right, thank you, Peter. And we'll have time for questions for Peter in a moment, but I first want to hand it over to Shelby Anderson to share his story as well. And it looks like, Shelby, there's some questions about where you all are from in the chat too, so if you can say that, that'd be really helpful.
Okay. Hello, I'm in Manteca, California. My experience goes way back to 2005. I bought a Ford F-250 with the new 6.0 motor that they designed, and I was pretty excited. That was probably one of the biggest expenses that I purchased for me, because I never personally, raising a family, purchased a brand new vehicle. So this was my first vehicle that I ever bought brand new, and I was really excited because getting ready to retire, I planned on doing a lot of camping, visiting the grandkids. The wife and I do some traveling around the California, the coast and stuff. So I purchased this Ford basically because with all the advertising and during that period of time, there was a lot of choices and a lot of advertising. And I just felt that the Ford was probably the best. I mean, they're the ones that convinced me through their advertising and friends having them and test driving them that the Ford was the best choice. I never really got into issues that these vehicles had in the past. I just felt, they're getting better and the dealership would take care of me. So I bought it, real excited about it. Great truck for the first year or so, 2 years. And then I had a couple little problems and take it back to Ford, and they were on it and they fixed it. And it wasn't really until I really got to use it for the first time for what I intended to. I got a big trailer. I rented it because we were in the market for one. So I rented a big towable trailer and we traveled along the coast. And the first hill that I tried to pull up along the coast, the truck started to hesitate and was jittering and started making this kind of coughing sound coming out of the motor, and I kind of lost power. And I'm on the coastal highway with all kinds of people behind me, and it's like I got no place to go. And I just had to limp up the hill, and we finally pulled it over, and I didn't know if it was hot, what it was, but we pulled over and kind of had lunch and said, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, let's just continue and we'll see. And it really, I didn't have any more grades to pull after that. So we finished the trip. And when I got back, I took it in to get it looked at. That experience along the highway really petrified my wife. And she said, I'm not going to get in the truck again with you unless you get this thing fixed. So I took it in, and they pretty much told me they really couldn't find anything. They wanted me to put this meter on it and drive it a little bit to see if it can be a reoccurring problem. Well, that didn't work. And so it was just a bunch of series of problems. It just kept getting worse. They kept telling me this, well, we can't find it. And when I would take it in for some warranty work or some, basically, one thing that I was smart with is I had the dealership do everything, change the oils. I followed the manufacturer's suggested maintenance program to the T. And to me, I just did that because this is the first truck I ever bought. And I go, man, I want this thing to last me 10, 15 years. I wasn't planning on buying another one. Well, the problems continued, and it just got worse. I couldn't trust it. I've had an opportunity. One time I was driving the truck with some friends. We were going up to the mountains hunting, and I'm driving down a 2-lane highway heading to the mountains, and the thing just shut off. And I'm driving it, and I lost all power steering. I got nothing. And so I'm trying to drive this truck, and I'm trying to pull it over to the side of the road and stop it. No brakes. It was just all manual. I was the manual brake, manual steering, everything. I finally got it pulled over. Well, turned out to be an alternator stopped charging, killed the batteries, and just shut the motor down. And that happened a couple times to me. And it was just all engine related stuff that just kept reoccurring over and over again. And basically they just kept putting band-aids on it until I got through warranty and said I was left with the problem. When I started investigating, I found out they had this thing called a bulletproof for the 6.0 motor that during the design phase, they experienced a lot of problems with injectors, putting too much pressure into the motor. And that's some of the problems I was having. I was getting a lot of leaks, oil leaks, coolant leaks in the motor, dripping on the driveway. And they'd fix it and then it would leak somewhere else. Well, and it was all due to the fact that the poor design of injectors was putting too much pressure in the motor. And I didn't know any of that until it was said and done. When I read the bulletproof fix problem, because it got through warranty, it's my problem. I got to fix this thing now. I own the truck. I really like the truck and I wanted to continue to drive it, but I found out it was going to cost me about another $15,000 to have this fixed. I never thought about, if it was a lemon or not until one day I got a letter in the mail saying that I was in a class action lawsuit for the 6.0 motor from Ford. And apparently everybody that bought a 6.0 Ford from the period of 2005 to 2007 had experienced a tremendous amount of problems. And Ford sued the manufacturer of the motor, Navistar International, because from the numbers I got, 280,000 F250 6.0 motors were purchased, and almost 240,000 to 260,000 of them had warranty problems, issues. So I was in a class action lawsuit, and I'm going, well, what's this all about? And then the very next day, I got a lemon law attorney thing in the mail. So I called, hey, what's going on? Well, tell me, explain this to me. And they told me, well, Ford has had a lot of problems. You are in a class action lawsuit, and they're working on a settlement, which tells me that, which means that out of all the people, I might get, he said roughly, you might get $900 to fix your motor. And I said, well, wow, it's going to cost me this much to do it. And he goes, well, then, you know, he just advised me, maybe you need to opt out and pursue Ford to see if they'll do something for you, with a Better Business Bureau to fix your problem, because they knew about it, you know, and they started telling me this stuff. So when I realized that Ford knew about all this and all these problems after the warranty, I felt, wow, you know, they just lied to me, the dealership, everything. And I was very, very disappointed, because, I mean, I put all my faith in them. You know, I'm not a mechanic, but I know enough to, you know, I know how motors work, and I just kept taking it back. I kept doing what I thought was the right thing to do as somebody that purchased this vehicle, to follow the maintenance required for the vehicle for longevity. And they just pretty much kept telling me a story. They were not truthful, and that's what led to the lawsuit. And during the course of the lawsuit and discovery, I found out how bad it was, that they concealed it. They knew of the problem 1 month prior to me purchasing this vehicle. Their head of their diesel motors told everybody, delete all your emails on all the problems that we are having. We're going to be involved in some class action suits on this motor. And that's how it started. And it took a long time. Ford never intended to settle with me. They never wanted to make things right. And for a vehicle back in 2005 that cost me, you know, $50,000, instead of solving the problem, they spent millions to try to defeat me and keep my mouth shut. And all they had to do was just fix the truck. And they chose not to. That's my story.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Shelby. Okay, so, you know, clearly there are still defective vehicles out there. We, you know, hope our report helps to educate consumers both on their rights under the Lemon Law, so they can take action like these folks have, and also how different car companies compare when it comes to preventing and addressing lemon cars. We also hope that these findings encourage car companies to improve the quality of their cars to avoid lemon lawsuits in the first place. So we're happy to, you know, answer any questions about the report, and I'm sure these, you know, owners here are happy to answer any questions about their stories as well. So if you do have questions, you can throw them in the chat or the Q&A feature. Either works fine.
Yeah, I see there's a question for me. I'm in Monterey. I was living there when I bought the car.
Here. Any other questions? Oh, we got one in the. Okay, we've got a couple questions. So John Carroll from San Diego is asking just what the final resolution is for both of you, if you're there yet.
Peter.
Yeah, you know, my lawsuit was finished after about 1 year, maybe a little longer than a year, and I won. So they purchased the car back. And just a little side note, when I actually returned it, they gave me the runaround. You know, my attorney had to be on the phone with their attorney while I was at the dealership, off and on for nearly 2 hours. And the person who accepted the car back from me wouldn't look me in the eye and wouldn't talk to me more than mumbling at me. Clearly, totally pissed. Never an apology.
And Shelby?
Well, okay, I started this process back in, I think, 2011, 2012. And it went all the way to the state Supreme Court. I wasn't given a court case until I think it was October of 19. There was just a lot of back and forth between lawyer and Ford, denial, depositions, you know, inspections, taking my truck to get inspected. And finally, when we decided to go to court, it was quite the experience. Ford had like 6 attorneys from one of the biggest law firms in the country there to try to win this case. The case lasted, it actually started in August. It was delayed because Ford, they play these games where they had videotape deposition of top people within the company, because you can't force anybody to come and be a witness or bring them in from another state in California under this. So since they lived in another state, our attorneys went out there and they did a videotape deposition and questioned them under oath. Well, their attorneys during the trial petitioned the court to not allow certain evidence. And that was one of the things that my judge decided not to allow videotape deposition of the top people at Ford. So what they did is they had to delay the case, and they took that to the appeals court. So my attorney wanted that appealed. The appellate court said, well, let's wait for the outcome of the trial before we make a decision. So they resumed the trial. It went for about 30 days of testimony back and forth. And it was amazing how Ford, they trained their witnesses to come and speak, and they weren't even people that had any knowledge about the particular motor. I had a gentleman that actually worked for Ford, was an engineer that left the company, that became a witness for us because he saw how Ford was handling things and knew the design phase of what his experience was. And it was just amazing, the cover up that went on with Ford. The motor was bad. They knew it was bad before they even put it out to sell it. They couldn't fix the problems. They kept trying to fix the problems. And they were so far invested in the motor, they decided to go ahead and run it and sell it. Well, I won my case. They appealed it. It took like 3 years to get through the appellate court. And once they heard the case, they awarded in my favor, all attorney's fees, everything paid. And then they appealed that and went to the California State Supreme Court, and they're a little bit quicker, and they denied to even hear the case from Ford. So basically I won, and they're, you know, and for, like I said earlier, you know, I spent 50 grand on this truck, and Ford spent, I think the last estimate my attorney told me, they were close to $4 million to defeat me in court on this case. And they never bought the truck back. I was ordered during the trial, they were to cut possession of the truck. It sat in my driveway for 3 years. I had to pay insurance on it. And finally, my attorney says it's a lemon. They did not file the proper paperwork at the end of trial to basically maintain status quo. So I was able to just kind of junk it for $500, get rid of it, because I had to put new batteries and I had to just get rid of it. But yeah,
Okay, we've got
they did not want the truck back, and they did not want to make things right.
Okay, let's see. We've got a couple more questions. In the Q&A, what can be done in the legislature, if anything, to get auto manufacturers to appropriately follow the lemon law? Well, I'll start by saying that California has one of the strongest, if not the strongest, lemon law in the country. And really the important thing is for the courts to enforce it, and to make sure, the legislature should be working to just maintain the strength of the lemon law in California and to push back against any, attempts from manufacturers to weaken it. But I can hand it over to Rosemary, who may have more to add there.
I'd agree with you, Jen. We need to preserve the law that we have, which is constantly under attack. And when we expanded the lemon law to cover business use, the auto manufacturers opposed that, but it passed. And when we expanded it to cover military who are stationed in California, even if they buy their vehicles outside the state, that passed unanimously and was signed into law by Governor Schwarzenegger. So we really do have a comprehensive lemon law, but it is under attack. It's under attack in the courts, and some manufacturers have been very aggressive in attacking it. There was a recent ballot initiative measure that some manufacturers were funding that would have undercut the lemon law. So we're not taking it for granted. That's for sure. And I noticed that there's a question about, apart from the attorney's fees, how much did Shelby Anderson get in his case? So I just wanted to give him an opportunity to answer that.
Well, I don't feel comfortable disclosing. It wasn't about the money. I will tell you this: they came before the appellate court rendered its decision, and they had the arguments before the appellate court. They came to me and offered me almost $70,000 more than what I was awarded in my trial. And at that point, I was so frustrated with the company and how they dealt with me in court. I mean, when I was in court, it was a character assassination. They attacked me, their attorneys, and it was just unbelievable how, they made me feel like I was a cheater, a liar, all kinds of stuff. And it's like, this is ridiculous. So I basically told my attorney, you got to make me stupid rich before I let this case settle. I mean, but what I will tell you is my attorney the law firm was awarded almost $650,000 in attorney fees. So just wrap your head around that. And I didn't get a lot of money, and it wasn't about the money. It was about me wanting to get a new truck. And so it was never a thing about trying to get rich. It was just making a stand to do what's right. And it was more important for my case to be published than it was to settle and get money and money, because if they really wanted to make things right, they would have done it 10 years ago, and they didn't. They had the opportunity. So I'm just hoping that with the publishing of this case, that it will help enforce bigger damages against the automobile industry and the manufacturers. Because I guess I was awarded 3 different levels of punishment that has never been done in California before.
All right. And then I think we kind of got at this, but any more either of you have to say about how these incidents affected your trust with these manufacturers? That's a question from Daniela with Gray TV.
What was the question again?
How do these incidents affect your trust with these manufacturers?
Well, I'll never buy a Ford again, ever. And basically my experience that I've gone through Ford helps. It educated me enough now on the questions to ask when I, because I went to General Motors because I'm still looking, I bought another truck, but I knew the questions to ask. When I have an issue, I know the questions to ask. When I go for warranty issues, I get everything very well documented. And that's an important thing to do. If you want to have a good case for lemon law, document everything and follow their manufacturer's maintenance to the T. You know, and so that's the best advice I can give you.
And I guess, are you finished, Shelby?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll follow up. You know, it's kind of funny. I will never buy a GM again. I would tell everybody, please don't buy a GM. It's really, it's, you know, overall, it was a horrible experience. The way I felt I was mistreated and how unsafe the incidents were. And you know, so you just said you had the same kind of problem towards Ford, and you know it. And you mentioned, Shelby, too, about your advice to document everything. I want to just echo that and tell people that just asking the dealer to document the problems that you're reporting is not enough. You have to check that they actually write it down in a way that explains it to your satisfaction, because the dealers, in my experience, they would put a very softened version of what the complaint was. And in one case, I actually had video footage that I had taken of the problem when I brought it in to the dealer so I could show them. And I said, put down into that, please attach the video. And they said, oh, we can't do that. We don't have a means to do that. And I said, well, please at least put in there that I have video of the incident and that I showed it to you and that you saw it. And they didn't want to do that. And they finally did after I insisted. So you're going to have to do things like that. And then that's necessary if you're going to later try to sue them. And they know, I think, which problems people are bringing to their attention, and they want to minimize so that they don't have the lawsuit. So you're going to have to push a little.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I found out it's you need to be very open whenever you take it in for warranty, and make sure that it's all written down on the warranty or on their job orders and stuff like that, because that's what saves you later. And mileage is everything too. The day you take it in and you have a request for service or there's a warranty issue, man, make sure that mileage that's put down on that work order is correct, because that's how these lemon law cases are going to really help you out, benefit you, is if you just all take it in and don't pay attention to, you drive it for another 10,000 miles when you still have the problem. Those kinds of things can kind of haunt you. So stay on top of it, document it. And, you know, I didn't have too bad of an experience with the dealership. They were always very willing to try to help me. They just didn't get any support from the manufacturer, and the manufacturer was playing a lot of games because they weren't not disclosing the problems that this particular vehicle was having. They were just giving them band-aids to try to get them through warranty.
Okay.
And just, if I may, just add a little follow on. Again, Shelby mentioned, I think once a consumer out there has started to feel that they are having some kind of chronic problem, I suggest that you document it with your phone, take photos, take videos, if appropriate, safely, of course, pull over, whatever, and make sure it's uploaded to the cloud. It's then time-stamped, and then you can use it to share with other people if you need to.
All right, thanks. So thank you both of you for sharing your experiences. You know, again, I think it's important to make sure that everybody has the, you know, resources that they need in order to make sure that they are, you know, taking advantage of the lemon law if necessary. And we hope that our report, you know, continues to educate folks on the protections and rights that they have, as well as, you know, information around, you know, the automakers and, you know, where they rank and how likely they are to be sued for a lemon. So, you know, thank you all for what you have to share. I did throw our full report in the chat, but I will definitely email that out to the media after this. And then it looks like we've got some additional quick questions. I think Okay, great. So we do have a few other lemon owners. So it looks like John made reference to Kim, who are available if you're interested in either follow-up interviews with these folks or additional interviews. Definitely reach out to us and let us know. And then video, yes, so this has been recorded. We can send it out. It is also available on CalPERD's Facebook page. This is being live streamed right now to our Facebook page, so you can find the video there. Any other questions? Okay, great. All right, well, thank you all again, and have a really great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Especially Peter and Shelby. You guys
Thank you.
rock.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, goodbye.